Welcome back to Project Brupeg. Last week you saw that inverter do silly things, and when we dug down deeper, it was almost a fire. This week we show you what happened. Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below.
We discovered this fault with this Oompa Loompa last week, and you can see that terminal block has got very hot. The three terminals on the right hand side, that's AC output, and clearly you can see I've disconnected that. And then on the left, that was where shore power was plugged in. Now the shore power is got a 15 amp circuit breaker, both on the boat and then back to shore. We had noticed there was an increased frequency in it blowing, not for any particular reason. I think we've just found the reason. So you can see it's got very hot, and you can see the wire which is going up from the active, from the shore power connection. It clearly has got very hot, it's melted. And I'm just looking inside there, and it looks like, a bit hard to tell with all the charcoal, but it looks like there are some broken strands there. So the only reason this can get hot when it's a current limited line like this is there's a resistive element in there, which means there's a connection that hasn't been correct or tightly made. That would therefore produce a bit of resistance and therefore a lot of heat, and we can see the result of that heat there. I think we can consider ourselves very lucky that this didn't cause a fire.
So up here you can see this conduit here that leads off up into the hole. You might just be able to see it going up there into the roof. Conduit's there to give it some protection, so it's working its way along this roof cable here, and we've got this here. We need to put some conduit onto it there. I'll do that right now so I don't forget. We've already done this one. You can see the conduit sort of spins around like so, and then those two are heading off down to our battery box down here. That's these two wires coming out the battery box to be wired. Duncan is in the process of solving the inverter. We know what's going on with it now. We know what failed. So we went into town, got some parts, and we're just repairing that now. So that inverter will be back online soon. I'm now about to, once I fix that conduit, I'm about to jump in here. We've got this cable and one of these cables needs to be joined, and then the other cable coming out of here needs to come over and link up with this guy here. So this is our negative, and there'll be a positive over there. Those two are going to run around the room here along the conduit, the cable tray up here onto this main one, and then back down and over and into our battery box. So time to get that done. Bit of 7mm conduit over top of that single cable. So you can see it comes up through here. There's plenty of conduit through that hole, and then I bend back the cable tray on just with side cutters, but just bend it back like that, so that when that sits in place, there's clearance all the way around, so there's no way that's going to chafe. Now this will be locked down probably with a P-clamp up here. Let's see if I can get that on camera. We'll probably put a P-clamp up here somewhere so that we can hold it a bit firmer, but that gives you an idea of how I try and do chafe protection for these cables. Dunk's on the first connection to live solar panels. So this is going to be front port. That'll come alive in a second.
Well, screwdriver, not much flat head left on it. You might see a bit of activity on the number one. There we go. Orange light. Absorption.
That's me logging in. So here we go. So we're sitting at absorption. So we've got 86 volts, which shows that the three panels are connected. What's it doing?
So I'll give you...
What's this, current? Oh, voltage.
It's PV voltage.
Okay, so we've got 86 volts, so we've got the three panels connected, which is good.
Now here we go, we're now in float.
Okay, so what are we showing over here? 1 watt. Oh, maybe the battery's full.
Probably is.
Hang on. Why don't we check the battery? The battery's probably full, that's why. Oh, we're at chock-a-block. Right, that's why we're doing nothing on the solar. We're trying to get all of this done before that big black wall arrives. So you can kind of see the cold air and the hot air are not really mixing, and it's scooping up underneath. It's normally the herald of a bucket load of often wind and bucket loads of rain. So we're supposed to get 50 mils of rain in the space of not very long, half an hour, something like that maybe. But anyway, we should be just about done. We're pretty much ready, everything on the back. Still got a few more cables that we need to put down, but they can wait until after the rain. Wheelhouse we haven't touched. The front is wired up on the deck. Now it's wiring on the inside. So we battened the boat down. I think we'll just wait that out.
That one?
So just it got very dark and quite windy all of a sudden. There we go. Just about here. You can kind of see it's just passed over and it's coming from hard on that side there. Just the wind just sort of zipping between the boats, but we're all battened down, so on that side will be no worries. Quite good out in the channel. Looks like a good 30 knots plus out in the channel. Hey, look at these guys. Wow. Yeah, that's probably a good. Oh, you look at the water whipping up out the channel there. Yeah. That's got to be a good 40 knots in the channel, I'd say. You sort of see the angle of some of the masts over the back. These guys here heeling right over. In the after showers now, so it's just a bit of drizzle and rubbish, but you can see the windows are wet. The water came right up to the back windows splashing in, so everything on there is wet, but that's all good. All the important stuff is everywhere in the lounge at the moment. We carried on wiring, so Dunk is in the battery sauna and he's hooking up basically the red and blacks to each charge controller down to the bus bars, or is that correct, down to the bus bars? Or
so we've got the leads coming in from the rear roof, and there, with plan A, when we had the Victron controllers in that corner, that's where the wires are terminating. So I'm now running all the wires from the new controllers back to that point. So we'll splice them in, and then we've got those that are to the foredeck. They're sitting here, so they're actually routing out just below.
They come out.
Damien's pointing there.
Let's get some light going on. So we've got a million cables going around that corner, and then they follow up the roof along the cable trays and to various locations. I'll show you that in a sec. So what's to do in the finish in this back here?
So what I'm about to do is hook up the black cable for the foredeck starboard. Damien's just brought in the black wire for that, so I'll route that in just a second. So that'll have completely foredeck done. I do have to route the, you'll see we've got the empty black PV holes there, so I need to run those 5 black cables back to that corner there. So I think that's a job for the morning. We're getting close.
Yeah.
Finish these off, and I'm just tidying up some bundles here. It seems that a bundle can never be finished. Just when you think it's done, you think, oh, it'd be good to route those black cables that way too. So that's what I'm just doing here, just collecting some bundles together, try and keep it neat and logical.
And then through here we've got our cable runs basically coming along our trays, and we have one that jumps out the roof there, and above our temporary range hood up here. So temporary range hood, this is just a piece of core flute that we built a range hood out of, and that's just to see if we like the shape. The shape works really well, and we've got room for insulation above and so on. So now we're going to build that out of stainless. We just haven't got around to it yet, but that's probably going to be the size and shape and everything of it. Right, our second set of solar, you can see the red and blacks sort of running along the roof here. One peels off to go up there, and the other sort of zooms around. Pretty chuffed with this P-clamping arrangement up here, so you can see one zooms off up into the hole there, and then we've got another hole right up in there. You might be able to see that, but I'm just going to reiterate again, pretty chuffed with how those P-clamps turned out. So out of our 9 charge controllers, that's 2 lots of solar wired up on the front. So on the front cabin, on the roof of the front cabin, so we've got the 2 130s on the top left of that Victron board. They will, in a matter of minutes, those 2 will be connected. The next 2, the 120s, the 2 smaller ones, they're for the wheelhouse. They're not going to be connected immediately. That's low on our priority list. We're going to focus on everything else. The other 130s, which are the bottom row. If I zoom down here, the bottom row of those 130s right down the bottom, they are for these solar panels on the roof here. So there's 5 groups up here, and we need to get them connected through our cabling, and that cabling comes through the roof on the back end of the boat here. So you got 2 pairs of panels, 2 groups of 3, comes along here, goes through that junction box into the boat, and then we've got these cables waiting to be dealt with, but they will be coming along this side over here, and they'll route, one hole will be up here somewhere and one hole will be up here somewhere roughly, and they will deal with 2 panels on that side of the roof, or 2 groups of 3 on that side of the roof. And then finally, a little bit of lightning on the inside of the boat, we've got a hole just up there, you can see through the insulation. That's going to be the final group of panels which sort of sit forward of that hole, all the way forward there up to about roughly where the door is. So once that's done, we've got 5 groups of panels on the back connected to charge controllers. Little Fluff initially was hiding under the bed when the storm happened, and now she's just sort of chilling out and sniffing everything and wondering why she's not outside chasing birds. While the storm's happening and we're doing our wiring, Jess was bunkered down into the room here doing editing of this week's episode. So this is solar 1.
Yeah, getting the solar connected up.
So last controller on the front deck has been hooked up. Dunk is now tidying up with some conduit in that corner. Jess just pointed out the progressive deterioration of the pontoon next door. that bit's getting quite a bit lower than normal. So Duncan is nearly done in the battery box. He's on the last sort of connections. I'm starting to work on these red and blacks here. You can see them drooping down all the way around here. I'm starting to zip tie these guys up. So what this is basically the last run of solar panels, and they go up through, you might be able to see there's a hole just there in the roof. These are the last red and blacks for the 600 watts of solar that's sort of sitting on that part of the roof. We are yet to fix these guys here to panels. So there's a red and a black, 2 pairs that need to sort of fasten down and over that way and mount over to some boxes there. We're yet to do that. You can see there's chaos everywhere because of the storm that we had last night. All of our tools are still in here, but it's a beautiful day outside. The storm's come through and cleared everything out, so that's quite nice. We did have about a 15-degree temperature drop last night, which was really welcome. So we'll carry on, press on. We're getting conduit and things over top of a lot of our cabling. You see this as it goes up and over around tray exits and anywhere that there's risk. So here, for example, as it goes around a corner, it's going over a join, it's going around a sharp bit here, so we're putting conduit so that nothing can go untoward, but slowly we're getting there tidied. That's looking 1,000 times tidier than it was, so everything running along the cable tray nice and neat. Duncan's got another 2 controllers hooked up, so we've got 1 and 2 hooked up. They're currently covered up with a tarpaulin. What do we got? And 7 and 8 are both hooked up, so we've got 350 watts and 450 watts coming out of those 2. These are on the rear roof. I've just wired up 9, so that's not connected yet, but the cabling's all run. And then we're about to connect, where are we? 4, 5 and 6. No. 5, 6, because 7 and 8 are already connected and 9's about to be connected. Just in case you thought this was going to be confusing or anything, I'm glad I was able to simplify that for you. So we've got these 4 cables coming down here. We've put our heat shrink labels onto them, so we know which cable is which. We now need to run them around the roof here and P-clamp them all up, put conduit on, and do all of the proper fastenings and everything like that up into the roof, and then get them up into the roof. Now we also need to get the one that I poked up the roof up here, we need to get that soldered down. And if you have a look at this, it's overcast, which is fantastic because it's about 10 degrees colder than normal, which means we can climb up on the roof and get that soldering done without it being too agonizingly hot up there. So I think first job, we'll climb up and get those ones connected. Currently we have this group of 3, this group of 3, and this one is the one that I'm working on. This is the other end of the cables that come up through the roof on the saloon, so I need to bring it out. Each cable has to come out through these cable glands and then join into these. If I move these, you'll be able to see. So we've got a connection between these here, and then exactly the same over here. These 2 here are connected, so these 3 panels are essentially one large panel with triple the voltage of a single panel. So we're bringing this is our negative. That's going to be coming through this cable gland like so. And and then our positive is obviously going to go over that side, but it will actually all be joining inside the box here. So the join for the negative is going to be out here, the join for the positive is going to be inside the box. And then if I spin around, you can see these guys here, they sort of group up. So we've got, in this case, we've got 2 panels coming into a single box. We have 4 cables rather than 2, but they do group up down the middle here, and we're going to fasten these down to the roof. We haven't done that yet, but we will be doing that. Same deal over here. We need to obviously push these down low and so on. Originally we wanted to have some sort of trip thing over top of it so you can't really catch your feet in it, but we haven't found anything that we can use. We don't know what's available locally. We can't find anything that's any good. So if anyone's got any suggestions as to how to cover that up, we don't really know what that's going to be yet. We would love to do something on there that's pretty decent though. So we'll make these connections, get that hooked up, and that adds another 600 watts to our solar bank. And then we're finally left to just deal with the starboard side panel, so forward and back. These are the 2 boxes, that one there and that one just there. And the back of the saloon is pretty much right on that weld line, so everything, those 2 boxes are on that rear roof that we need to deal with. So I've made pretty much all of the connections here. This is the last connection, so this is 590 volts. Actually, that's not going to fit by doing that, so there might be a spark. There we go. Okay, just going to heat shrink up. Now we've heat shrink these labels just to help us with what we're doing. Right, time to glue this together. This back junction box, I have to do something a little bit different. I have to drill a hole right on the side because there's a rib running right down the middle there that I didn't know about. So by putting it on the side there, we can clear that rib. And then down in that box you can see we've got this conduit here, a couple of cable zip ties to stop it from moving anywhere. It can't go anywhere, but it's locking those 2 together, and then it goes down through the roof with that conduit there, so it protects it from any of the sharp edges and so on. Everything else is zip tied up nice and sort of tight. It can't go anywhere, it's not on the panels. We do need to fasten these down to the deck, but we haven't got a solution for that yet. We need to come up with something, but that one's ready to go and ready to hook up to the charge controllers. There we have, rear roof fully wired up. So every single one of these is now connected to some cables. These 2 are yet to be connected to the that one's connected to charge controllers, this one is yet to be connected to charge controllers, and that one is still to connect to charge controllers, but everything on the roof is done. So you can sort of see the weather, it's a wee bit grey and miserable. We were expecting a bit of rain. I don't know if that's going to come through or not, but it's been nice working up here. It's much colder, but I don't know if we're going to get longer out here anymore because of this weather. It might come in, so we can do all of our wiring under the roof now. So yeah, time to get stuck in, get some of this done. One of our Patreons, Donald, recently asked how our flags were holding up, and they're practically looking brand new still. So we don't take these down, they just fly the whole time. So there's the New Zealand flag there, we've got the Australian courtesy flag up here. Both of them have just been up in everything that BruNet heads has thrown at us so far, and they look perfectly fine. In the lounge, Duncan's working on our BruNet system. So at the moment we haven't had RPM or oil pressure up on the bridge.
So we had problems with the NMEA 2000 box. It's actually a commercial box, but it really just was not operating reliably enough for us. So what we've decided to do with this prototype engine monitoring module is add oil pressure and RPM. With the RPM, this is a little opto coupler, so I'm about to mount this to the board, and the opto coupler will couple optically signals from the alternator through to the microprocessor sitting here. The processor basically is going to count the time in between pulses for the alternator, and we'll get RPM from that. Really, this has been operating very reliably, so that's why we're thinking of, well, that's why we're migrating RPM and oil pressure across to here.
It's getting serious. We're googling and we've got an oscilloscope out. We've got flashing lights.
So flashing lights, that's very important.
That is a positive sign. What's been going on? What are we up to?
Okay, so this is simulating a tachometer input.
Yeah.
Which we go there.
And we see tacho over there.
So this oscilloscope's got a little waveform generator, so I'm feeding into the optocoupler. A very crude approximation of what the tachometer input would look like. I'll move across to a sine wave in just a second, but I'm just going through and checking the circuit now.
Cool, so that's all working the way you thought?
So far?
Lovely.
Yep.
These are the two that I've just put through. So this is the rear, and then this is the forward one up there. So that's the one with the big hole saw I was able to put conduit around. This is the one where I couldn't, and had to do like a small conduit type thing around the actual cable. So what I'm doing now is bundling everything up so that we essentially have a conduit going across, and then we're going to P-clamp, same as what we've done here. So we've P-clamped right the way along. We're going to do exactly the same with this one over that side. Alright, so we should have it running. It's not showing up on here because we haven't got our cables plugged into that at the moment, but we have got it on our old phone that we're running. So it's pissing with rain right now, so there's no power. So we've got 3 watts and 0 watts coming through from the front. However, don't know if you can see it, there's a shade cloth hanging over those ones, so they're not going to work. Right, 5, we've got 40 watts. 6, we've got 30 watts. 7, we've got 48 watts. 8, we've got 55 watts. 9, we've got 0 because we haven't, that's 9 sitting there to be hooked up. And wheelhouse are the last 2 that haven't been hooked up, so 3 and 4 are sitting at 0 because obviously they're not hooked up. Right, let's get number 9 plugged in. So the solar's nearly done. We've got a red and a black to hook up. That's to come, but Duncan's been working on the BruNet system, so we need to start the engine. So we've got our hydraulic oil on, engine oil's checked, gearbox oil's checked. We've got plenty of coolant in the system up here. Everything's clear on the engine, so we're ready to start. Duncan's been working on getting the cabling and everything hooked up to the new board and all the mods that he's been doing. And the final check is run the engine and make sure we've got data displaying up on the bridge. So we're about ready to start. We've got the dashboard sitting up here, so you can see we've got engine coolant temperature at 35, engine oil temp at 34, roughly ambient temperature. The engine coolant temperature it's interesting when you put your hand on this, it's warm, so as you would expect at 35 degrees. So it kind of gives you an idea of how hot it is. That's probably almost close to seawater temperature, I'd say, out there at the moment. Oh, maybe that's a bit hotter, I don't know. But we're ready to start.
Alright, so there are 2 things I want to calibrate. One is the oil pressure.
As we see oil pressure come up on here, we'll be able to tell what we need to set it at.
Yeah, and then we need to do some tachometer. So I think we know that's a 16-hole alternator. I've actually set it to 8.
Yep.
But we'll know if our factor is whatever out.
Yeah.
So I can fix that very, very quickly. You're going to stay neutral so I can actually sit there.
Yep. For some reason we have our voltage has gone orange and it's showing as 0 and we don't understand why. That's a bit weird.
So we'll see if the amps come up. Look, it could be because we're in the process of disconnecting the NVA 2000 box. So I could have dropped a wire in that as we went. So I'm good to go.
Sweet. Engine's good.
We're good?
Yep. found the reason why it wasn't working. That wasn't plugged in. we now have RPM. So we've made some adjustments. We're ready for startup number 2.
Good.
Yep, good to go. We're struggling to get oil pressure readings correct, so we think it's the sensor. That's awesome! Cross-referencing it with this start current, and
I'm really happy with the way the RPM has worked out. I've now moved all of that across to our little prototype, our own embedded system, and it's working very consistently, very reliably, and far better than it was with the Enemy A2000 box. So very happy, and we've got some other things to tune in. The oil pressure is a lot better. The sender is not quite the off-the-shelf sender we thought it was, but we've got it making some reasonable readings, and it's jumping around a little bit, so we'll look into that a bit more, but we're a lot closer. Damien and Jess are now at the point where Brupeg, they could take it for a run and get good instrumentation up on the bridge.
so it's the last day that Duncan's up with us. He was up last night doing coding until he fell asleep, and is just doing some tweaks on the RPM and the oil pressure that we hooked up yesterday. When I say we, it was mostly Duncan. And today's job is getting the last of these solar cables, red and black, for number 9 down to the charge controller down the corner here. There's been a couple of questions about cooling in this area. So some people have said we haven't got enough space up here to cool these, and these are upside down, therefore it's bad for condensation. We're pretty confident we're not going to get condensation there causing an issue. We won't know obviously until we've had a couple of years of testing probably, but we're pretty confident that we'll be okay. As for cooling, it doesn't matter if we mount these down 200mm or 100mm, it's still a bloody hot room, so we need to deal with some sort of cooling regarding this, not just relying on passive cooling. So what we're thinking is actually having a fan in that far wall over there, pulling cold air in, and then if I come back into the lounge, these 2 stainless pipes, so these take air out of the 2 cabins downstairs and push the hot air out of the boat. We're thinking of adding another 2 that will do exactly the same, but take air out of the battery box and put it out of the boat. So through natural convection, we're going to end up with cold air coming in through a fan low over on that side of the battery box, and hot air on the other side being pulled out. So that's our plan, and we're also going to redirect it'll be a fan, so we're actually going to be using one of these little 12-volt Caframo fans. So if you've never seen one of these, they're bloody expensive. This is about $300 now, $350, but they're super low amperage and extremely quiet, and they push a large amount of air. So we're going to be using one of those, running 24 hours a day, pushing the air through the battery box, and then we're going to have a 10-inch duct on that fan directing all the cold air straight across all of these. So there'll be a constant stream of cold air being pushed across all of these charge controllers, and we're hoping it's also going to create a bit of a swirl in that room, and it's going to be pulled out from the far corner going up. So that's our plan to mechanically cool this room. He's putting a saddle clamp into what is a long VE direct cable. So each charge controller has a cable that connects it to the servo just there, and the servo is the brains of the unit. So eventually it'll have 9 charge controller cables and 1 smart shunt cable. And what that allows us, fan down, what that allows us is to see so this is our smart shunt here. It tells us the specs of the batteries basically. So we're at 93%. We've got negative 35 amps coming out, and that gives us 6.5 hours of battery time. And then that will eventually be displayed up here. At the moment we haven't got all of the pieces connected, so it's only seeing the load come out. It's not seeing anything going in yet. but we're getting very close to having the system wired up. So we're just about getting our power flowing through. We've got our VE direct USB cables. Dunk's hooking the last of these guys up. One of the downsides of using the servo is it just doesn't have enough ports for the sheer volume of charge controllers that we've got, so we're having to use USB extenders. That's a screw, ignore that. We're having to use USB extenders that you can sort of see mounted just down the back there. You can get another unit, I've since found out. One of our viewers commented that we can get a unit here that apparently has multiple ports. It basically does the same job, just has lots and lots of ports. Didn't know that when we bought this one. This was the only one we knew of that was available for what we needed. So anyway, live and learn. This will still work, but yeah, it would have been nicer not to have to use these little USB connector things. We also realized this morning our main solar charging fuse was too small, and so we throttled, before the sun came out, we throttled all of our charge controllers back. We can't unleash the full power of these things yet because we haven't put the right fuse size in, so we've throttled them back to 18 amps, and they're pretty much pinned at 18 amps the whole time. So you can see each group of 600 watts of panels is producing 500 watts, which the total solar that we've got connected right now is 2.3 kilowatts coming in. So at the moment we've got the whole rear roof connected, we've got the whole front roof connected, but we've got shade cloth over the front. So there's, 1.2 kilowatts that's not going to work at the moment because we've got shade cloth over top, so ignore those ones. This is pretty much coming off the rear roof and it's throttled, so yeah, it's interesting to see what it's going to be like when we take the covers off and then put the right fuse in and then lift all the restrictions. Okay, so I'm just logging into each inverter and I'm changing the self-imposed limit that we had on it because we've now just upgraded the fuse, so we can bump this up from 18 amps to 30 amps max. I think we're almost approaching a full battery soon, I think. But this one moves to 630 watts out of 600 watts of panels. It's pretty cool. Alright, so let's come back up here. So they're all consistently, what, 620, I ignore that one, 620, 640, 400, 580. So we've got a little bit of charge going in, but we've also got a lot of load running at the moment. So total solar that we have running right now is 2.8 kilowatts, and that's again with the front shaded, so that's pretty much just the rear roof that's producing that. There's 2.9 kilowatts worth of panels there, and we're getting we'll call that 2.9, so close to it. So it's like a 1-to-1 ratio, we're not getting any losses, and we've got 2.3 kilowatts coming out, so 14 amps positive going into the battery, or 350 watts. So cool, pretty awesome. And what we were finding is the RPM was not updating fast enough, so it was updating every 2 seconds, so there was always a slight delay in what we were seeing from engine to actual gauge. So he's updated that to be every half second, and the oil pressure was fluctuating quite a bit. So instead of taking a reading and then displaying that on the screen, he takes a reading and then it only gives it a 10% weighting, so it only ups it by, let's say it increases by 10 psi, it'll only allow it to increase on the gauge by 1 psi, and then another reading will allow another 10% increase, etc, etc. But this happens like multiple times a second, so essentially it sounds like it's a bad thing, but what it actually does is smooths the whole thing out, and it acts almost exactly the same as the analog gauge. So we're about 15 minutes away from having to go into town and drop Duncan off, but Duncan is down in the engine room doing an absolute last minute rush to get this update done on the system. Duncan's been dropped back into town now, and I'm to tidy up the last little bits and pieces of cabling in this box, but let me show you where it's at. Oh my god, time to deal with that. It's not actually as chaotic as it seems, it's just a lot of stuff that's been put in there. We were racing to get the last pieces plugged in and running and so on before Duncan left. Now it's just a case of going through and like coiling things up, putting conduit on, tidying up, zip tying it, and making a neat job of the cabling that is left over. It's probably a couple of hours worth of work, but I'll just get stuck in and make it look presentable. And this is our battery area, now that we've had a chance to have a really good clean up. Zip tie everything, cable tray it the way we want it. Apart from the chaos of work, the actual work site is looking pretty tidy now. That's come up really nice. So we still need to replace these inverters, but we think we've bought ourselves a bit of time with that terminal block. Like it was just the terminal block that was an issue. So we need to come up with something on that. So I'm doing a solar test for you. You can see our batteries are sitting at 50%. So we've got, call it 3 kilowatts of power going out, or just under 120 amps leaving, 25 volts of battery. So we've got 41 minutes at their current power draw. We've got 41 minutes of battery time. Hence we often say our battery bank isn't big enough. That's what we're talking about. Now, I'm showing you that because with half of the battery gone, when we turn the solar charge controllers on, they will go into full power. So before we do that, I'm going to switch them on. They take a couple of minutes just to get themselves all sorted. So let's go down here, solar on, and we'll log out of this, and we'll start seeing, there we go, 530 watts. So they're starting to come alive. So I'm not going to go into the details of that. I want to go outside and show you the condition of the panels in terms of like dust and shading and all that sort of stuff, right? So have a look at that. You can see quite a bit of dust on here already, and we've got quite a bit of shading. So but just there, we've got the front of the laser dinghy is shading these guys here. We've got heaps of dust over the back. If I come around here, we've got more shading on this panel. So the kayak's shading probably a good, I don't know, 40% of that panel. We don't have the wheelhouse panels connected yet, but obviously there's stuff all over them, so they wouldn't have done anything. The back panels, however, pretty much clear sun. So I'll show you this. So we've got 600 watts here, not shaded. 600 and 600, both not shaded. We've got 600 watts here, and we've got 500 watts here. So in order to fit them, you see this panel here is narrower than the other two. So 200 watt, 200 watt, 100 watt. So we've got a 500 watt group there and a 600 watt group there. So it just gives you an idea. They are slightly different sizes, but you see there's no shading. So the exhaust isn't shading any of this stuff. It's approximately midday. So the solar is going to be as good as it's going to get. All right, let's go inside and see what the numbers show. First off, let's have a look at the servo. So we've got 3.15 kilowatts going in, and we wait for that to, and we've got just under 3 coming out. So we're pretty much covering. Oh, there we go. We've got 5 watts going in, -5 going out. We're basically neck and neck covering what we're using. But we have everything running in order to drain the batteries. But this will give you an idea. So this is the front panel, so port side and starboard side. So this is the one with the most shading. So these are 600 watt groups each. No, they're not. This is a 500 watt group. This is a 600 watt group. Small amount of shading on this one, a lot of shading on this one. If we go to the back, we've got 5 is a 600 watt, 6 is a 500 watt, 7, 8, and 9 are all 600 watts. So you can see we're pulling 540 watts, 570, 518 out of each of those. And yeah, you can see it's basically just maintaining whatever we've got running at the moment. But again, we've got the entire boat running so that we can try and drain the batteries down. The story, I just turned off one air conditioner downstairs, and it's pulling, it's freed up 50 amps. So that's what, close to 1450 watts of power that one air conditioner was using. But one thing that's quite cool, I'll jump in here and show you this. Go into history. You can sort of see what each of these panels have been producing over the last, since we've hooked them up, 4 days basically. Yesterday they had a good run. They weren't running the whole day, but they produced just under 3 kilowatts. So we're pretty confident that we'll get 3 kilowatts per group of panels per day. And we have what have we got, 7 of those groups of panels. So it's a fair whack. What's that? 21 kilowatts a day, 3 7s, 21. Yeah, so heaps of power available soon. This is a 600 watt group doing 580 watts. The highest I've actually seen a 600 watt group so far is 730 watts. So in the right conditions, these solar panels perform better than their rated capacity. They're pretty extraordinary. And this is nowhere near perfect conditions for them. They're on a slight angle. The sun isn't perfectly directly above them. You know, there's dirt on them, as I showed you. They're not shaded, but apart from that, like, it's not great conditions for them, and they're still doing very, very close to their rated capacity. So our total network at the moment is putting in 3.2 kilowatts of power, and we're sitting at 70, just over 70 volts, and each charge controller is putting in about 20 amps, roughly 20 amps of power into the battery.
So watch this. That's what it's supposed to do. With this last update, that software update that Duncan did on BruNet, we now have an exact replica of the analog gauges down in the engine room up here on the bridge, and so with that we're ready to go. So it's incredible. Thank you so much, Duncan, for all your work and all your time. Incredible, just incredible. It was years ago that we talked about and came up with a plan about what we were going to do here, but we didn't even begin to dream that it would be something like this. So we are incredibly grateful. And now what we've got to do is get ready to go on anchor. We've got a few more jobs, and for our first real serious trials, and then our maiden voyage. So we've got a busy couple of weeks ahead.
Alright, awesome, thank you. Cheers. Bye.
That was the marina saying we do have to move the boat now. The guy with the trawler is coming down.
Yeah, we thought he'd kind of evaporated into thin air and it wasn't happening, but it is happening. Anyway.
Alright, so we're moving.
Yeah.
So we've got the grease to do.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. Probably should tidy some of the engine room at some point.
Yeah.
So we can get to the motor.
Yeah.
In future.
I'll take
and the grease lines.
We just need a snow shovel.
The great cleanup is about to commence. That's next. So, but we had a Patreon meeting and we discussed a whole bunch of things. Thank you so much, everyone. But one of the things we discussed was the inverter.
So we do get sponsorship on the batteries that we've got. So we do get sponsorship on the batteries, the lithium batteries that we've got. We get 17% off, so it's not like a free battery. We do have to pay for it, but we do get a good discount on those. They're 1,250 Australian dollars each, and we need a minimum of 3 of those to get the bank to be twice the size that it is right now. So that's part of it, and then the other part is the Victron components.
Inverters, yeah.
We don't get sponsorship from them. One of our Patreons, Jeremy, reached out and emailed Victron directly.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So sweet.
It was awesome.
He doesn't. It was really amazing. They don't do sponsorship, generally. We've got a bit of time and we will do everything we can to look after our little Oompa Loompas, and Duncan's, TLC nurtures them, make sure that they're okay. These guys, you guys are amazing, and we're putting cooling in, of course, to keep them going. But we just hope nothing major happens soon. But you don't know, so we've got to do something.
It is fixed, but at the same time, it gives us a good hint that it's not going to be fixed forever. So, we're out of the woods right now, but we need to deal with it soon.
And it is a little bit different than if it was just our boat. If it's just us on board, we can hobble along. We can,
patch things up.
We can go with nothing, but we can't do that with people on board. It's if it's us, it's our risk to our life. It's our safety. But with and that matters. It absolutely matters, and we'll be as safe as we can with ourselves. But for us, it adds this thing where we've got to be really, really careful when we want to look after everyone very carefully, and that means that the gear is running and as reliable as we can do. We're almost there. Woo-hoo! Almost there.
We are so close to going.
We've got to do the grease lines to the
prop shaft and rudder.
We've got to clean up the engine room and actually stow stuff and decide what we're keeping. We've got to clear it out. We've got to do some other jobs. We've got to move the boat next week. But we're getting close. We're getting really close.
We're getting really, really close.
With the last push with Duncan and Damien, it's wow. We've got so much.
There's not much left to be able to start heading out and doing some proper multi-day sea trials.
And thank you, BougeRV, our sponsors, for our solar, and those panels are proving.
I've never seen panels produce more wattage than what they're rated for in real world conditions. Like, I know it's possible in a lab, but like on a grubby, dusty roof that's not perfect angle, I've never seen that happen. I'm absolutely blown away by how efficient these panels are.
Clouds going over.
Yeah, it's just staggering.
Wow, amazing.
Staggering.
The odd marks already starting to happen on those things, because we're moving around and using the boat.
And you've seen us, we walk on them with work boots, and we treat them like as if they're just a part of the roof, and these things are just phenomenal.
They truly have blown us away. They're not cheap, for sure. We've got in touch. Thank you, everyone who's tried to access some in Australia and got in touch with us to ask us what's going on. They have said that yes, they're sold out, but they're also pulling out of Australia, so you'll have to go offshore to get them. Yeah,
they are still available in the other markets though. So if you're if you're in the States and Canada, that sort of thing, and you're looking to buy some, there's a link in the description below, and there's a discount code as well. So if you're going to get them, it's worth just clicking on that link and grabbing the discount while you can.
We're so lucky. We're so lucky to have you guys. Thank you so much, our patrons and our viewers and our supporters and our sponsors. We're so grateful. So, hope you're having a lovely new year. We're sweating our pants off over here, and it looks like it's not stopping anytime soon. So we'll get to it. We'll get those grease lines done, get the engine room done, all the other little bits and pieces, and keep you posted.